I had learned how to fail without going under. It's called the Moat Theory. I did this thing and I named it the Moat Theory. It's like how you get your little castle, your little chickens and your eggs and your horses and whatever. You get your little place that you need to live, and then you put a moat around it, and you get enough cash flow coming in to pay for your little lifestyle inside this moat. And you can pull the drawbridges up and you fill that moat full of piranhas and alligators and crocodiles so that it's very protected.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Mitch Stephen, and Mitch has been self-employed real estate investor for the last 25 years or more. And his real estate investing career started at the age of 23 when he read a book by Robert Allen called Nothing Down. He has purchased well over 2,000 houses in and around his hometown of San Antonio, Texas. And Anthony, how good was this interview?
I'm still speechless. Like, it was, man, there was so many nuggets of good information. I really enjoyed it. How about you?
It was awesome. It was, a takeaway that I've got that I'll throw in here right now is, man, when you talk to somebody that has been very successful in what they do, it's kind of becomes common. It's not about the money at that point, right? That's the same thing that we just had with Mitch. Is we had a great conversation with him, and now he's at a point where he doesn't need to make more money, right? He referenced $1 million, but now he's at a point where, man, really what kind of drives him is actually helping other people kind of achieve their goals. And that's a real sign of success, in my opinion.
Well, honestly, there was so much good stuff. I think we are going to end up cutting this into 2 episodes. So and we're not sure exactly where we're going to cut, but man, one of the many takeaways I had, and I think that this is common with people who are successful, is that they invest back in themselves. When he first got into real estate, he talks about how he got a big deal where he made more money than he's ever made before. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't go buy liabilities, right? He's from Texas and he was wearing a cowboy hat. Like, he didn't go get a new cowboy hat or some boots or a truck. He got educated. He went and bought courses, and you notice that's a common theme for people that are successful, is that they are getting educated. And one thing he talked about, I know this will be in the first segment, was when he was scaling or growing, it wasn't always about the money. Yeah. It wasn't, I need to do more houses than next time. He also mentioned, what if we spend some time working on our systems and our processes? Yeah. And he mentioned buying back time, right? So, because a lot of times we focus on the money, but really at the end of the day, what we're trying to get is money. So sometimes there's a way where maybe we make the same amount of money, but we have more time, right? What were some of your takeaways?
Same as I just kind of referenced the same one earlier as far as kind of the idea of giving back. But man, I really like kind of what you said. Is I think the way you said it was, maybe success isn't buying or getting 100 houses, but maybe the success is doing the same amount as you did in the previous year, but just in less time, right? And you've got more time to go do what you want. So, man, just a great interview. We'll wrap it up into 2 parts. And I will say this before we kind of wrap up the introduction, is that there was some audio issues, and it wasn't anything that was consistent. It was very spotty. So there's maybe 3 sections in there where some of the audio on his end gets a little grainy, but definitely well worth the time, and certainly listen to this thing through the end. So enjoy this episode.
Take care.
Mitch, tell us about your path to financial freedom, and what was your greatest challenge in the beginning?
Man, we don't have enough time for this. It's a long story about getting drugged through the mud. A long, muddy story. But I don't know. Everyone's, how did you get into creative real estate investing? I said, it was the last thing left. Like, if that didn't work, I was going to shoot myself because I had failed at everything. So long story short, I bought a condo that was seller financed to me. The guy I bought it from made it affordable for me. I had a bartender. I couldn't qualify for a loan. I was a bartender and I was making cash, and he financed the condo to me. And I liked it because I wasn't paying rent. I was paying to own, and it was my place. And it was the first place I'd ever owned. And, that's always a big step at at 19 or 20 or 21, however old I was. And then a 2-bedroom, 2-bath came available down the road. And I figured out that if I rented out mine and if I rented out the other bedroom in my 2-bath condo that I was going to buy, that I could live for free, maybe even make a couple $100 a month. And this was a revelation to me. So I did that, and it worked out fine for a while, but I learned about crappy ass tenants and not collecting rent. And I learned about all that. And then someone made me an offer on my condos, and I sold them, and I had $45,000 in the bank, which was more money than I ever seen in my account ever in my life. My whole deposits may not have ever even added up to $4,000.
You were rich, yeah.
So I decided maybe I better look into this thing called real estate, and I bought Carlton Sheets and Dave Delgado and Jimmy Napier and Jack Miller and all these old names that you guys probably don't even know anymore. And then it led to Ron LeGrand and Lou Brown and a lot of guys that Ron LeGrand and Lou Brown really changed my life. But that being said, I read a book called Nothing Down by Robert Allen, which was a revelation to me because he had the audacity to suggest that I could go control and make money off of real estate with no money. And so that book caught my attention because if being broke was a criteria, I had enough to buy the whole town. I was so broke, I could buy everything. And so it just kind of started from there. Here's the interesting concept. It took me 7 years to own the concept of nothing down in my heart. I could read it all day long. But I didn't get it till I accidentally one day bought something with no money. And then I said, oh, I got it. And now I owned it right here. I owned the concept. And then I was a man on fire. I put $35,000 in my bank account, which was about how much I made a year. And once I saw the $35,000 in there, and I said, I'm going to keep living just how I live, but I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to see what I can do my first year. My first year, I did 45 houses. My second year, I did 65 houses. And my third year, I did 150 houses. And that was too much. And I backed off to about 100 houses a year. So I have bought a property about every 4 to 5 days for 2.5 decades. I have averaged 100 houses a year for 2.5 decades. No shit. And I didn't even know that because I wasn't keeping track. It's just that one day someone was going to sue me, and the piece of paper was in my storage where I kept the files, or where somebody kept shipping my files, my people. I own some storage places, and we designated a storage to hold all my files for IRS reasons and all kinds of reasons. And I went, no one could go take the time to go find that file, but this threat of this lawsuit was really agitating me and scaring me. And I knew I had the paper, but I just said, you know what? I can't wait for someone to go, I got to go find this piece of paper that covers my ass like right now. So I went and I opened up that storage door and I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to find this piece of paper? Because there was, from the ceiling to the roof, stacks of houses, files of houses. And so I did find it because luckily the containers were all labeled month, year. It was real easy. I went right to it. I found it. I was covered, squashed the lawsuit threat. Then I said, somebody go down there and count how many houses there are in that files in that storage. And then I just did the math. And I buy a house about every 4 to 5 days for 2.5 decades.
Okay, Mitch, that's quite a bit more than most people, right? Maybe in a lifetime, you're doing it in a month. So explain how you do this, because I am aware of it, and it's a pretty unique process.
Well, I mean, who's your average audience? So I know, like, who's the average listener right here? Are they real estate investors, or are they just people that want to know about investments in general?
Most of it's going to be about real estate investors, and some of it are people who maybe they haven't done their first deal yet.
Okay, so you don't have to do 100 houses a year. If you think that I ever thought that I would do 100 houses a year, you're crazy. If you think that I ever dreamed that I would be where I'm at, you're crazy. It's just my goal was to do a little better next year than last year. And on a lot of different fronts, not just more houses, because sometimes more houses isn't the answer. Maybe you need this year to stop doing more houses and just do the same amount of houses and like fix your damn systems, because you're all everywhere, and you're going to get in trouble if you don't start tracking stuff better, or you're going to, bad things will happen if you're not organized in a lot of different departments. So, how to buy back some of your time. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into like getting better that year. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you make more money. It could just be you make the same amount of money, but it's easier now, or it takes less of your time. So I started out getting houses under contract. Most people start out doing wholesaling, which is basically you get a house under contract and then you sell your position or assign your contract, right? That's how almost everybody starts, because everybody I know, with the exception of a handful of people, started out broke. So if you're waiting to have a lot of money to do this business, there's going to be a long ass wait, because it ain't going to happen. It's the chicken or the egg thing. So when you start out, you have to pick strategies that can be done with little or no money. So forget about all the other strategies. Just find the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 strategies that you can do with no money and start there. That's usually wholesaling or assigning a contract. When you don't have money, you're a professional deal finder, contract writer upper. You can quote me. You don't have to have money to be able to negotiate a great deal. You don't have to have a lot of money to be able to write a contract and get someone to sign it. Okay? You need skills, and you need drive, and you need a little education maybe. Okay? But that's it. So that's what everyone does in the beginning. You get a $100,000 house signed up for $50,000. Don't worry about who's going to pay for it, because someone wants half of that $50,000 potential net profit. And whoever wants that. And so you walk around town and you say, hey, look at me. My name's Mitch Stephen, and I don't have any damn money, but look what I got. I got this contract to buy a $100,000 house for $50,000. Now, who wants half of this $50,000 profit? Everybody in the room raises their hand. Then you go, okay, who's willing to bring the $50,000 it takes to close? A lot of hands go down. There's still some hands up, and you pick one. And now you're in business. You're going to get your deal funded, and you're going to make $25,000 or $20,000, or, it always starts, whatever you think you're going to make from the day that it all starts, it starts shrinking from the very beginning. So, that's just the rule of real estate investing. It's an unwritten rule. It's a natural law somewhere. I think it was the 11th commandment, I'm not sure. But what you think you're going to make and what you actually make is always less. So, so then you start like that, but then I hesitate to bring this up because it doesn't work now, although but it is a mind-opening thought. So I'll go ahead with it. I bought my first 100 houses on credit cards. In 1996, in 97 and 98, houses in San Antonio and the lesser parts of town were $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, $18,000. Also in 1996, you could apply for a credit card, and if you had a good credit, you got the card. And it didn't matter how many cards you applied for. I figured this out. I applied for 75 cards in a 2-week period. I got 50 cards. I had $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 cash advance limits on every card. And some of it 0% introductory offer. And I had 6 months to pay. So I went around and I bought houses like this. Hi, I need 10,000 on this card and 10,000 on this card. That'll buy the house. I need 5,000 on this card. That'll rehab it. Then I'm going to flip it. So I have 50,000 in it, right? None of my own money, 0% interest, no points, no shit, maybe 3% fee. But if you use the checks, it was $50. If you use the cash credit card checks, it was only $50 no matter how much you took off the card. And I bought, I had $350,000 worth of credit card debt, but I had $700,000 worth of houses free and clear with no liens on them, which almost got me divorced because my wife, who I'd been married to for 30 days, thought I was a friggin' nut. Did I ask my wife's permission to do this? Hell no, because I already knew the answer to that deal was no. And I wasn't going to try to take 14 years to explain to her where I was at, that it was going to be okay, because it ain't going to work. It'd taken me, literally 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get to the level to be able to make a decision and feel good about it to put $350,000 on a credit card. She wasn't going to get there in a day or a week or 6 months. So I was hiding I was running to the mailbox before her until one day I didn't. And then she literally, I was 30 days married and she had her backpack and was getting in a car.
Man.
I stepped between the car and the door as she was getting in so she couldn't close the door. And I said, you know, you're being irrational, which is another thing you learn.
Yeah.
I was only married 30 days, you know, so like, I would say you're being irrational. If you'll give me 60 seconds, I'll explain to you why you're making a very bad decision. And so she looks at her watch and says, okay, ready, go. Because she was literally going to give me 60 seconds and that was it. I said, okay, you think I'm gambling with our life and our credit and all this stuff. You think I'm gambling. So I'm going to put this in terms of gambling, but it's not gambling by any stretch of the imagination because I know what the things that I bought with these credit cards are worth. And I know how long it takes to sell them. I'm taking calculated risk, but let's put it in your field. You think I'm gambling. I have $350,000 on a poker table. Okay. We're playing 5-card draw and I'm supposed to get 2 cards back. I've got $350,000 of our money in and you're leaving before I get my 2 cards. You're an idiot. What if I win? You can leave me when I lose if you want. But why are you leaving before the game's over? You know? So she said, okay, you better win. And she stayed. And then, I won big. And I already knew this. If I was going to go into this business, because I had a high school degree, I already knew that I had made up my mind a long time ago. I was going where I was going. And if anybody didn't want to go with me, they could get off my train. But I wasn't asking permission. I wasn't going to have a debate about it. I wasn't going to discuss it with anybody except someone who made over $2 million a year. And if you don't qualify, I'm not talking to you. So I was prepared to do whatever it took. Because the first thing you have to do before you can take care of anybody is take care of yourself. And I needed to learn how to take care of myself. So here I am, I'm going around town. I'm using the MLS. I'm using all the comps to find out what things are worth. And then I'm going out finding distressed properties, situational properties. I like to call situational properties, people in situations or properties that are in situations or both. And then I'm making offers because these people don't have time. Like people go, man, it must be hard to buy houses now. It's a booming market. People are getting over list price offers. How the hell can you buy a deal? I don't live in that world where people got time and can take bids. Mine is mama's fixing to die in 4 days. What do you want to do? You're fixing to go to jail for child support in a week. What do you want to do? You're behind in taxes and the property tax foreclosure is coming in 5 days. What do you want to do? I live where there's no time and there's no choices. Very limited, and that's where I live. And that's why COVID, I bought 83 houses in 2020. Was surprised. I was I thought for a while there I'd be lucky if I bought 40. And I was about there till about the last 3 months, and then things opened up and I bought a crap load of, everybody was waiting on my advertising and everything. And then finally they got tired of waiting too. So the end of the year was kind of a flood, and I ended up being at about 83 houses, just a little short of my 100. But here's the deal. I have $26 million worth of private money that I earned over this 27 years I've been in business. I earned it because I make my payments on time and I don't make my problems anybody's problems. If I have a problem, I handle my problem with cash or whatever I got to eat. My people just get paid. They don't even know. It's just like a clock. And those people have been with me 10, 15, 20, 25, some of them coming on 30 years. Wow. A lot of them would have been over 30 years, but they died. And so I bought houses with OPM and then other people's money, right?
Yeah.
And then I sell it. Then my lenders allow me to wrap the mortgage, which means I can sell it on payments for twice what I paid for it. So I buy a house for 50. I owner finance it for 100 with 10% down or 10 grand down. So I'm carrying the 90,000 at 10% for 30 years. And I'm making payments on the 50 grand to my private lender at 8% for 15 years. So I'm making 2% on my borrowed money. I have 26 million on the street right now. So I have a $26 million 2% CD, which is better than the bank. And then I make the full 10% on the difference between 50,000 and 90,000, which is a note I'm carrying. So I'm making 10% on 40,000. That's my model. And I'm not a landlord. I'm the mortgage company. So when the air conditioning breaks, I don't have to write a check to the air conditioner man. So when the money comes in from my occupant, owner, buyer, that's my money, because it has hardly any reason in the world to go out, because I'm not responsible for any of the repairs because I'm the mortgage company. And the only time I ever have to take any money out to do anything is if I have to foreclose on them, I have to pay an attorney. But then when I get the house back, I'm going to collect another down payment. So I'm never really out any money. As a matter of fact, I stand to make money on foreclosures, but that's not my MO, or that's not my business. I'm not in the business to take houses away from people. I'm in the business to move renters into being homeowners and to make them successful. And that's my goal.
All right, Mitch. So you'd made a comment that you live in the world where people don't have the time to,
or the resources,
yeah,
or the will.
So how do you find that area? How do you find people or those homes in those situations?
Well, you're looking for signs where there's distress. I mean, down here it's called, excuse me, I'm sorry. Down here it's called nuisance and abatement. Who's got a nuisance and abatement judgment against their house? I can go to the courthouse and find out this month, everyone who's got a nuisance and abatement judgment. The house has become a nuisance because the grass is 3 feet tall and the city sends someone out to mow it for $350. You think that guy has a real estate problem? I do. Or maybe they went out to board up the windows because the vagrants are going in and out and it's getting dangerous. And so they went and boarded up the house and they put $1,000 judgment for that labor on the house. This guy's got a problem. Whoever owns his house has a problem, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think some people filing for divorces? You know, I can go to the courthouse, I can find divorce filings. You think maybe they got some real estate they need to settle up on real quick? How about inheritance or estates? You know what I mean?
Probate.
Go find who's trying to settle an estate. You think they got some real estate problems? I mean, it's always like 7 heirs, and then they get it all liquidated. It always gets down to this one crappy ass little house that nobody knows what to do with. Everyone owns 1/7 of it. Everyone's waiting on $1 million each when this estate settled, and there's one little crappy house holding it all up. No one gives a crap how much that house goes for. Someone get rid of the house so we can get our $1 million. You know what I mean? Jail. Who's going to jail? You think they got a real estate problem? You know, whose house got caught on fire last night? You know, all this shit's in the public records. I mean, you know, like, go look where there's problems.
No, Mitch, you definitely are thinking outside the box, and I love it. I think it's awesome.
That's
okay.
what I do. That's my middle name, outside the box. I mean, one time Ron LeGrand asked me, how do you, not a good aim. Ron LeGrand asked me, how do you find the owner of abandoned houses, Mitch? Because he'd given this long dissertation. I says, well, you don't do it how I do it. And he says, oh, so I've been doing this all these years and you know a way I don't know. I said, yeah, I do. He says, how do you find an owner of an abandoned house? I said, I put a for sale sign in the yard with my number. The owner calls me every time. I mean, like, what the hell? You guys are doing all this shit and running around. I mean, just get a $1 plastic sign and put for sale on it. And the guy's going to call you. Put your phone number. It's a little more complicated than that, because the guy's going to call. He's going to be pissed. And then you're also going to have people calling you that want to buy the house. And one of those people is the owner disguised as the guy that wants to buy the house, because he wants to figure out who's got a for sale sign in front of his yard. So you have to modify everything. You have to put for sale with a question mark and then your number. So you can disarm the owner when he calls, and he won't see the question mark until you point it out to him. He's livid. And then you say, and then you have to talk to these prospective buyers as if they are the owner. So when someone calls and says, hey, I want to call about your house on 123 Main Street, you got a for sale sign. I'm thinking, is this guy the owner? I say, well, you know, I probably need to remove that sign and not sell it right now because there's some title issues. And at that point, the owner will go, damn right, there's a title issue. You don't own the house. That's my house. And he'd say, Mr. Smith, I have been busting my ass trying to find you. And this was the last result. Did you see the question mark on my sign? I am not selling your house. I'm asking you, is this damn house for sale? Because I've seen the city out there putting out pink slips, and I think they're going to demolish it pretty soon. Have you gotten any notices from the city? Anyways, try to make friends, but that's a last resort.
So,
It's for sale?
yeah.
Question mark.
By the way, out of the box, people were stealing my signs, So I just took a turkey baster and I squirted all the flutes full of Clorox. It stopped that shit immediately. Then someone says, well, what if that Clorox gets in someone's eyes and you get a lawsuit? And I said, you're right. Let's just use skunk scent from the hunting department at Academy. I've seen people take my signs down all along the neighborhood thing and throw them in the front seat of their BMW. I thought, oh my God, this is great. This think like a skunk for 1,000 years. Don't touch my signs.
Mitch, you talked about kind of how you got started, right? And how your business has changed, right? You're really the source of funding was credit cards originally. Now you've got private money. What else has changed from your business from now or from the beginning to now?
Well, when I started out, I never did wholesaling. I went to a whole different route. I'm one of the few people that didn't start out wholesaling. I would buy a house with OPM. I would sell it with owner financing, and I would sell the note in the same day sometimes. Sometimes I would call them grand slams. I didn't have any money. So I was looking for vacant houses with out of town owners. I could get it under contract. While it was under contract, they were out of state. So I could show the house to prospective buyers before I'd even closed on it. I could find the buyer with an owner financing note. And then one day I'd walk into the title company, and then I would take a piece of paper. I would fill out like, if I buy this, if I sell this house to this person with this much down payment, with this terms, with this appraisal, with this everything, how much money will you give me for it? The note buyers would say, we'll give you, 87% of whatever the note balance is. If that number was good for me, I'd call up my people and say, you're approved. Then we would go to the title company and I would close on the house. Then I would go to a different room and I would sell or finance the house. And then I would go to the different room and I'd sell the note to the note buyer. And then I'd take the cash from the note buyer to go fund the first room. It was a triple closing. And I used the note buyer's money to buy the house, but I'd close on the house. Then I'd sell the house with owner financing. When I closed on the house, I said, I'd be right back with the money. Give me about an hour. And I go to the other room in the title company and sell the house on payments. And then I'd go to the other room in the title company, I'd sell the note, and they'd wire the money, and then I'd use that money to buy my house. And it was not easy, but I did it hundreds of times because I didn't have any money and there was no choice. The human body is the most adaptable thing in the world. You don't give it a choice, it'll figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
So then associates closed. The note buyer who bought all these notes, they closed because they decided they weren't going to do subprime notes because there was too much fraud in it. Now they were having people jick up deals. They were making straw buyers. They were fixing up the outside of the house and making up straw buyers. And they opened up the door and it had dirt floors, and so they were, too many people were jicking up too many deals and they decided to quit. And then at that point, I didn't know what to do because on that day, we called it Black Tuesday. It was a Tuesday in 2001. They just closed with no announcement. And everybody in the note business, their way of living ceased in a split second. And I had 53 houses in my inventory. And I said, well, the first thing I got to do is I got to load them because I'm making I was doing this so fast that my money was 18% in a $2,000 kicker. That's my private lender was 18% in a $2,000 kicker, but I wasn't having these houses for 30, 60 days. Okay. So he needed that rate and he needed that kicker because I was just in and out all the time. The thing was, I didn't have to make any payments because I was in and out so fast. The interest would just accrue until I sold the note and then I would pay everything. I also had very short-term money. The money was for 12 months, which was the problem. But I said, the first thing I got to do is I got to load these houses so I can start collecting some money instead of it all going out every day, interest every day, interest every day. I can start collecting some. So I went and loaded the 53 houses. Let's just call it 50 houses at average 1996, $30,000, $40,000 houses, average, say $4,000 a month. I mean, $4,000 down payment, 10%, because those houses were 40,000 at the time.
Hey, Mitch, how are you defining load when you say, well, I'm loading these houses?
Load them. I got to find someone to move in and start making me a monthly mortgage payment.
Okay.
Give me a down payment. And I wanted to sell it to them on payments. They have to give me a 10% down payment or better. And then they'd have to start making monthly payments, 30-year fixed, 10% interest. Sometimes higher, but this was before Dodd-Frank. So I loaded 50 houses for easy math, 4,000 down. I put $200,000 in the bank account. Then I had about $350 a month positive cash flow. What's that math? $350 a month. Let me do it real quick. Yeah, $17,500 a month positive cash flow with no maintenance. I mean, it should come in and never go out. So I did that. I loaded the 50 houses in like less than 60 days because I had to. I was in trouble. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was going to do about this 12-month balloon on all these things underneath. But one is I had $2,000 in my bank account and I had about $20,000 a month coming in positive with no liabilities. And so it dawned on me, why the hell did I ever sell a note? And the morph happened. Why the hell did I ever sell any notes? I understand when I sold the notes, I made $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 every time I did. I had a huge tax liability. I mean, but that's when I shifted my whole business. I was forced to, and out of necessity, I came to a different conclusion. The only thing I had to do was I had to go readjust my underlying debt. So the person that I was dealing with, of course, the person you're dealing with never wants to change. They always want to stay the same. So I had to go out in the world and say, who wants to give me a longer term set of money for a lower interest rate? And, you know, I was sweating bullets for a while, but I was calling on people every day because I didn't have a choice. I had to find better underlying money. Banks were not going to deal with me. I didn't have a track record. I had good credit and everything, but I didn't have a track record in this industry. Probably my books weren't that great either. That's an understatement. That's an understatement. So the very first time I got a yes at a 15-year AM with a 5-year balloon, it changed my life. You know, it was, whew, someone will do it. If there's one, there's more. And I got encouraged, and then I got positive. There was a certain confidence. You know, my chest got stuck out just a little bit further on that first one. Then I found the second, the third one, and then by the fourth time a fourth person said yes to me, I was bulletproof and unstoppable. I had learned how to sell it. I knew why I was selling it. I knew why they were taking it. I just kind of honed my pitch and took all the no's and asked why. And then they would tell me why. And then I'd figure out how to, you know, maybe that was just the wrong guy. I can't do anything about that, but maybe there was something I could do about it. Like I was asking for 15-year money right off the bat, no balloon, and everyone said they didn't want it. So I started at 10%, 15-year fully amortized, and that's how they came in the door, and that's how I got the meeting, because I was offering 10%. But if they didn't want to do 15-year fully amortized, then I said, well, hold on. They'd already exposed themselves now. I know who they are. They raised their hand. They called me. I said, hold on. I'll do 15 years with a 12-year balloon for 9%. I'll do 15 years with a 7-year or 10-year balloon for 8%. I'll do 15-year with a 7-year balloon for, you know, and it kept going down. But I would get them in the door on the high interest rate. Just, I would never mention my terms, and they wouldn't like my terms, but I already met them now. They can't hide from me. They expose themselves. And then we would come to a rate and term. Right now I have $26 million at 8%, 15-year fully amortized. Dang. Non-recourse collateral only. which means every time someone loans me the money, if they have 500,000 to get out, they don't just give me 500,000 or I go put it in some account or it goes, it's not pooled with anybody else's money. It's like I say, okay, you got 500,000 you want to get out. And I'm just pulling that number out of my hair because most people start with lesser money than that, way less. I said, well, here's one. I need 70 in the first position. I can sell it for 140. Okay, you good with that? Here's another one. I need, 100 in this one. I'm going to sell it for 175. And we just work our way up, and every deal stands on its own. One lender, one piece of collateral, one payer. So I'm not SEC regulated or anything. They're collateral only loans. One of two things happens. And I look at my private lenders every day, straight in the eye, my new ones, and tell them this before they ever do the first deal with me. You have to understand me, sir. I have two rights every day if you loan me money. I have the right to pay as agreed, or I have the right to walk my position in this property over to you any day I want. So if you don't like this collateral, do not make the loan. So we're straight from the very beginning. The only reason I do that, I've never given a house back. I've never deeded a house back. I've never been foreclosed on. I've never filed Chapter 7, 13, or anything. Knock on wood, and by the grace of God, but also by a lot of good planning and a lot of self-policing, I never borrow more than 65% of what I can sell or finance a property. I average borrowing 58% of what I can sell or finance the property for. So the only reason I need collateral only is if I'm going to pay that much money to you with that kind of collateral, that kind of cushion, then you have to share in the downside catastrophic risk that in the event Kim Jong dumbass drops a nuclear bomb in downtown San Antonio, that ain't my fault. But I'm paying you 8% with a massive amount of collateral so that if that ever happens, you're not coming after my storages and my commercial buildings and everything that has nothing to do with you. That's why I can sleep at night owing 26 million is it's collateral only non-recourse loan. Not because I'm ever going to give it back. The only reason I have that stipulation is so that if something catastrophic happens that's not my fault, I don't have to pay for it with my life's work. Make sense?
Yeah.
So, so I have a book that you can get, The Art of Private Lending. I teach you how to make 12, 14, 15, 16, 18% is usurious in San Antonio. In Texas, anything over 18% is usurious. I teach you how to make as much money as you want loaning out your money. But if you're going to make those high rates of return, 14, 15, 16, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves, build a team, go find business, and go, check out pieces of property and see how much you want to loan them. You have to go to work. Then about 3/4 of the way through the book, I say, if you want to just keep playing golf and make 8%, call me. I'll do all the stuff I told you to do. And so, it's your choice. You want to make an exorbitant rate of return? I'll show you how to do it, but you're going to go to work. If you just want to be passive, call me. I'll do everything we just said. I'll cover you just how I told you to cover yourself, but I'll do all the work.
So Mitch, you just referenced that book, but I know you got a couple more. Can you tell us a little bit about the other books and why you wrote those?
Okay, so I started a series called My Life in 1,000 Houses, because at the time, when I counted the files, it was 1,000 houses, but that was in 2008. I had something tragic happen to me, and I didn't know what I was doing. I never planned to write a book. I didn't care about writing a book. Right now, there's about 4 English teachers rolling over in their graves. Something tragic happened, and I didn't know it, but it's a natural tendency for a lot of people to want to catalog their life when something tragic happens, when you lose someone. And I sat down to start journaling, and I was doing so much in the housing department that my life, you couldn't talk about my life without talking about houses. You couldn't, there's no way. I started cataloging my life. Where have I been? What have I done? What do I do now? How did this happen? Why did this happen? Where do I go from here? And I wrote 1,200 pages. Somebody got a hold of it and said, you got to make this into a book. It was very honest. It was very brutal because I didn't give a shit at the time. About what anybody thought about anything because I was really hurting. And so I told this really honest story about what happens after the Get Rich seminar with the fight with the wife and the damn guru who didn't tell me about the people that take your copper plumbing out of your house when you piss them off, or They didn't tell me any of this crap. All they showed me was nice checks and big cars and and well-endowed women. They didn't show me anything about what happens on the other side of the coin. And I wrote this book called Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. And it's about how a dumbass learned how to buy 100 houses a year for 2.5 decades, and how I kept morphing and morphing and morphing with a basic theory. Let's move away from pain as gracefully as possible, and let's move towards pleasure as fast as we can. And everything that happens, you ask yourself, if it's painful, how do I stop that from happening? And if it's pleasurable, you ask yourself, how do I make that happen more often? And we just keep running the traps on those two questions on every situation that comes up. And 9 times out of 10, I have to talk to someone who's smarter than me to figure it out, but I figure it out nonetheless. I'm not the smartest guy ever in any room. I have a boatload of common sense, and I have a real aversion to pain, and I have a real attraction to pleasure. And so I take those 3 things and I make it work for me.
What, Mitch, what I'd like to is, so in this book, you explain how somebody can replicate what you're doing.
Well, in this book, I'm just kind of showing how any entrepreneur will morph into what they want to become. This one has real estate as a backdrop. Then the overriding question that got sent in after My Life in 1,000 Houses got done, failing forward to financial freedom. I had learned how to fail without going under. It's called the Moat Theory. I did this thing and I named it the Moat Theory. It's how you get your little castle, your little chickens and your eggs and your horses and whatever. You get your little place that you need to live, and then you put a moat around it, and you get enough cash flow coming in to pay for your little lifestyle inside this moat. And you can pull the drawbridges up, and you fill that moat full of piranhas and alligators and crocodiles so that it's very protected. And then any money you make over the cash, well, you have to get the cash flow to support that moat. Like at the time in 1996, I needed $3,500 coming into my mailbox. And if I did, it'd pay for my little moat, what's inside my moat, my little castle, my little kingdom. It was very modest on purpose and by necessity at that point. And all these big, huge $1 million goals shrunk down to one first step I had to do. If I was ever going to be rich in this world, which I wasn't sure if I was going to be wealthy or I wasn't sure if it was in the cards for me, but if I was ever going to be rich, the first thing I had to do was I had to get financially independent, which meant I had financial independence is defined by when your wants and your needs are exceeded by your cash flow.